My name is Marcus Chun. I'm 34 years old, and until 6 months ago, I was the senior marketing strategist at Apex Digital Solutions in downtown Chicago. I had everything mapped out. A promising career trajectory, a corner office in my future, and what I thought was the respect of my colleagues and superiors. I'd spent 7 years building my reputation at that company, working 60-hour weeks, sacrificing weekends and holidays, all because I believed in the meritocracy they preached during every town hall meeting. I believed that hard work and brilliant ideas would be rewarded. I was wrong. Let me take you back to where it all began, or more accurately, where it all fell apart. It was a Tuesday morning in March, around 8:47 a.m., when I walked into the office with a leather portfolio tucked under my arm. Inside that portfolio was 6 months of work, a comprehensive digital transformation strategy I'd codenamed Project Phoenix. This wasn't just another marketing campaign. It was a complete reimagining of how mid-sized manufacturers could leverage AI-driven customer analytics, predictive marketing automation, and blockchain-verified supply chain transparency to revolutionize their market positioning. I'd spent countless nights researching, building models, creating projections. The potential revenue impact? Conservative estimates put it at $2.3 million in new business within the first year alone. My boss, Richard Hendricks, 48 years old, silver-haired, with that practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes, had scheduled a private meeting with me for 9 a.m. Richard was the VP of Strategic Initiatives, the kind of guy who wore Armani suits and drove a Tesla Model S, constantly name-dropping his MBA from Wharton. He'd been with Apex for 12 years, riding the wave of the company's growth while taking credit for his team's innovations. I'd seen him do it to others, but I never thought I'd be his next victim. I was his golden boy, or so he always said, patting me on the shoulder during company mixers. "Marcus, come in, Richard said that morning, gesturing to the chair across from his massive mahogany desk. His office overlooked Lake Michigan, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the gray March waters. "I've been looking forward to this presentation all week. You've been so secretive about this project." I'd been secretive for good reason. In our industry, ideas are currency, and I'd learned to be careful. But Richard was my direct supervisor. I trusted him. That was my first mistake. For the next 47 minutes, I walked him through every component of Project Phoenix. I showed him the market research, the client acquisition models, the revenue projections, the implementation timeline. I even demonstrated the prototype dashboard I'd built using my own money, $3,200 worth of software subscriptions and freelance developer work. Richard sat there, nodding, occasionally scribbling notes on his yellow legal pad, asking insightful questions that made me think he truly understood the magnitude of what I'd created. "This is exceptional work, Marcus," he said when I finished, standing up to shake my hand. His grip was firm, his smile warm. "Truly exceptional. I need a few days to review the materials and prepare a presentation for the executive team. Let's schedule a follow-up for Monday. I think this could be your ticket to that director position we've been discussing." I left his office feeling like I was walking on air. 7 years of grinding, and finally, my breakthrough moment had arrived. That Friday, I was working from home, finishing up some quarterly reports, when my phone buzzed with a message from Jennifer Park, a junior analyst who sat 3 cubicles down from my office. Jennifer was 26, fresh out of Northwestern, sharp as a tack, and one of the few people at Apex who I'd mentored and actually trusted. Her message was simple. "Marcus, you need to see this. Check your email. Be somewhere private when you do." My stomach dropped. That kind of message never precedes good news. I opened my laptop and refreshed my inbox. There it was, an internal company-wide email from Richard Hendricks, sent at 2:34 p.m., subject line, Revolutionary New Strategy Initiative, Project Renaissance. Project Renaissance. My hand started shaking as I opened the email and began reading. Every single element of my Project Phoenix was there, repackaged and rebranded under a different name. The AI-driven analytics, the predictive automation, the blockchain integration, my revenue projections, my implementation timeline, even some of my exact phrasing from the presentation. The only difference? Richard Hendricks was listed as the sole creator and architect of the strategy. The email announced that Richard would be presenting his groundbreaking initiative to the board of directors the following Wednesday, with a recommendation for immediate implementation and a $500,000 budget allocation. At the bottom, in bold text, this initiative represents the innovative thinking that makes Apex an industry leader. Congratulations to Richard Hendricks for this exceptional strategic vision. I sat there in my home office, staring at the screen, reading and rereading those words. 7 years of loyalty, 6 months of work, all of it stolen in less than 72 hours. Jennifer's follow-up message came through. "I saw your presentation folder on his desk yesterday morning. Overheard him on the phone with someone, saying he needed to rebrand this before anyone connects it to Chun." I'm so sorry, Marcus. This is fucked up. The rage that flooded through me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. My vision literally blurred at the edges. But beneath the rage was something colder, more calculated. I'd spent 7 years learning how this company operated, how Richard operated, how the industry operated. If he thought he could just take my work and leave me with nothing, he'd severely underestimated who he was dealing with. I spent that entire weekend locked in my apartment, ignoring calls from my girlfriend Sarah, letting my rage transform into something more useful, a plan. See, Richard had made several critical mistakes. First, he'd moved too quickly, greedy and overconfident. Second, he didn't realize that I'd documented everything. Every iteration of Project Phoenix was time-stamped and saved on my personal cloud storage, including the preliminary emails where I'd informed him I was working on a major strategic initiative. Third, and most importantly, he didn't know about my relationship with James Morrison. James Morrison was the CEO of Titanium Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing company based in Milwaukee and Apex's single largest client. They represented $4.7 million in annual revenue, 18% of Apex's total business. I'd been the lead strategist on the Titanium account for 3 years, working directly with James on every campaign, every strategy session, every quarterly review. We developed a genuine professional friendship. He was 52, a self-made millionaire who'd built Titanium from a small machine shop into a regional manufacturing powerhouse with 340 employees. He valued loyalty, hated corporate politics, and had a nose for detecting bullshit from a mile away. Richard had always taken credit for the Titanium account's success, naturally, but James knew who actually did the work. He'd told me as much over drinks after a particularly successful campaign launched the previous November. You know, Marcus, I work with Richard because he's the VP, but you're the reason I haven't taken my business elsewhere. Just want you to know that. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. Monday morning arrived, and I dressed in my best suit, navy blue Tom Ford, a splurge from when I'd received my last bonus. I arrived at the office at 7:15 a.m., before most people, and went straight to Richard's office. He was already there, of course, probably rehearsing his stolen presentation. Marcus, he said, looking genuinely surprised to see me. I was going to call you in later. About your project. My project that you're now calling Project Renaissance. I interrupted, my voice level and cold. His face barely flickered. The man was a professional. I think there's been a misunderstanding. After reviewing your preliminary work, I developed a more comprehensive strategy that builds on some of your foundational concepts. That's how collaboration works, Marcus. You contribute ideas, and leadership synthesizes them into actionable plans. Collaboration requires both parties to be aware they're collaborating, I said, and it requires credit to be given where it's due. Richard's expression hardened. Be very careful about your tone and your accusations, Marcus. You're a talented strategist, but you're not indispensable. If you're unhappy with how things work at the executive level, perhaps you're not ready for advancement after all. It was a threat, clear and simple. Shut up and take it, or face consequences. I understand completely, I said, forcing a smile. You're absolutely right. I think I need some time to reflect on my future here. That's mature of you, Richard said, his confidence returning. Take the day to cool off. We'll talk later this week about your role moving forward. I left his office and spent the rest of that day doing something that probably violated several company policies. I meticulously backed up every file, every email, every document related to every client I'd ever worked with special attention to the Titanium Industries account. 3 years of strategy documents, campaign results, correspondence, meeting notes, everything that proved my value and my relationship with James Morrison. That evening, at 6:47 p.m., I sent my resignation email to HR, effective immediately. No 2 weeks notice. I cited irreconcilable differences regarding intellectual property and professional ethics. By 7:15 p.m., my access to company systems was revoked. By 7:30 p.m., Richard had left me a voicemail that started with confusion and ended with thinly veiled threats about non-compete agreements and trade secrets. I didn't return his call. Instead, at 8 p.m., I called James Morrison on his personal cell phone, the number he'd given me for emergencies. Marcus, he answered, sounding concerned. Everything okay? I just heard you left Apex. James, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you make any decisions, I said. Can we meet for breakfast tomorrow? There's something you need to know about the company that's been managing your account, and about what I'm planning to do next. There was a pause. Then, the Riverside Cafe, 7 a.m. I'll be there. I didn't sleep that night. I spent the hours preparing the most important presentation of my life, one that would either launch my future or destroy whatever remained of my career. The Riverside Cafe was a small breakfast place near Milwaukee's 3rd Ward, the kind of spot where business deals happened over scrambled eggs and strong coffee. James was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, looking serious. I didn't waste time with small talk. I opened my laptop and walked him through everything. The creation of Project Phoenix, my presentation to Richard, the theft, the rebranding, the company-wide email. I showed him time-stamped documents proving the work was mine. I showed him the correspondence. I showed him everything. James's face grew darker with each slide. When I finished, he sat back and let out a long breath. "That son of a bitch," he said quietly. "And you're telling me this why? You want me to raise hell with Apex's CEO?" "No," I said. "I'm telling you this because I'm starting my own consulting firm, and I want Titanium Industries to be my first client. I want to implement the actual Project Phoenix, the original version, not Richard's bastardized copy. I'll charge you 30% less than what you're currently paying Apex. I'll give you twice the attention and strategic oversight, and I'll deliver results that will make the last 3 years look like amateur hour." James studied me for a long moment. "You're taking a huge risk here, Marcus. You're what, 34? No established company, no infrastructure, no track record as an independent operator. You're asking me to bet $4.7 million a year on a startup that doesn't even exist yet. I'm asking you to bet on the person who's actually been delivering your results for 3 years, I countered. Richard Hendricks has set foot in your facilities exactly 4 times in 3 years. I've been there 47 times. I know your operations, your challenges, your goals. I've earned your trust, not Apex's letterhead." James was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. A real smile, not the corporate variety. "You've got balls, Chun. I'll give you that." He pulled out his phone. "I'm texting my CFO right now. We're convening an emergency board meeting for Thursday morning. You'll present your pitch to my entire executive team. If they approve, and I'll be recommending they do, we'll terminate our contract with Apex effective immediately and sign with your new firm. What are you calling it?" I hadn't even thought about a name. But in that moment, watching my entire gamble come together, one word came to mind. Phoenix Strategic Consulting. The irony was too perfect. James laughed. "I love it. Thursday, 9 a.m. Don't fuck this up." The next 72 hours were the most intense of my life. I officially registered Phoenix Strategic Consulting as an LLC. I built a basic website. I refined my pitch, incorporating specific proposals for Titanium Industries based on my intimate knowledge of their operations. I prepared financial projections, service agreements, implementation timelines. I barely slept. Thursday morning arrived. James's conference room was intimidating. A long glass table with 8 executives seated around it, including James at the head. His CFO, a sharp woman named Patricia Hendricks, no relation to Richard, thankfully, looked especially skeptical. I presented for 90 minutes. I held nothing back. I showed them not just what I would do, but what I'd already done for them under Apex's banner. I presented case studies, revenue growth charts, market position improvements, all my work, properly credited this time. I showed them Project Phoenix in its original, unmodified glory, with specific applications to Titanium's manufacturing vertical. When I finished, Patricia was the first to speak. "These cost savings you're projecting, 30% reduced fees plus improved results. Can you guarantee these outcomes?" "I can guarantee the reduced fees, and I can guarantee you'll receive the same strategist who's been delivering your results for 3 years, I said. "I can't guarantee specific outcomes because that would be dishonest, but I can guarantee that every strategy, every campaign, every initiative will have my personal oversight. No middlemen, no credit-stealing VPs, no corporate bureaucracy slowing down decision-making." James looked around the table. "All in favor of terminating our relationship with Apex Digital Solutions and contracting with Phoenix Strategic Consulting?" 8 hands went up. Unanimous. "All in favor of authorizing a 3-year contract with Phoenix Strategic Consulting at the proposed rates?" 8 hands again. James stood up and extended his hand. "Welcome aboard, Marcus. You're now officially a business owner and Titanium Industries strategic consulting partner. Patricia will work with you on contract details. Our legal team will handle the Apex termination notice. This is effective immediately." I shook his hand, trying to keep my own from trembling. I'd just stolen Apex's biggest client right out from under Richard's nose. "One more thing," James said, a wicked smile crossing his face. "I'm going to personally deliver the termination notice to Richard Hendricks. I want to see his face when he realizes what happened." That Friday afternoon, at 2:47 p.m., I was in my apartment, now my temporary office, setting up systems when my phone started buzzing with messages. "Jennifer from Apex. Holy shit. Marcus. Hendricks just got called into an emergency meeting with the CEO. Everyone's talking about Titanium pulling their contract." Another message from Tom Chun, a colleague from my old team. "Bro, whatever you did, it's legendary. Richard looks like he's going to have a stroke." Then my phone actually rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. You son of a bitch. Richard's voice was barely controlled fury. You stole my client. Your client. I said calmly. James Morrison was never your client, Richard. He was mine. You just happened to have the fancy title on the business cards. And by the way, it wasn't technically your client anyway. It was Apex's client. Which means you're actually angry at me for doing to you what you did to me. Except I did it legally. I stole nothing. I competed and won. You violated your non-compete agreement. My non-compete prevents me from working for a direct competitor. I interrupted. I don't work for a competitor. I own my own company. And before you threaten legal action, you should know that I've documented everything about Project Phoenix, including timestamp files proving I created it, and your theft of it. You want to go to court? Let's go. I'd love to depose you under oath about Project Renaissance. The silence on the other end was beautiful. You've made a huge mistake, Richard finally said. One client doesn't make a business. You'll fail within a year, and no one in this industry will ever hire you again. Maybe, I said. But at least I'll fail with my dignity intact. Can you say the same? He hung up without another word. The fallout at Apex was spectacular, and I heard about every detail through my network. Richard had to explain to the CEO and board of directors how they'd lost their largest client. The Project Renaissance presentation to the board, scheduled for that Wednesday, had been postponed indefinitely once the Titanium termination came through. Without the credibility boost from Titanium implementing his strategy, Richard couldn't credibly pitch it to other clients. But the real damage came when Jennifer, emboldened by my departure and disgusted by Richard's behavior, went to Apex's CEO with evidence of the Project Phoenix theft. She'd taken photos of my original presentation materials on Richard's desk and had recordings of his phone conversations about rebranding my work. The CEO, facing potential legal liability if I decided to sue for intellectual property theft, launched an internal investigation. 3 weeks after I left Apex, Richard Hendricks was asked to resign to pursue other opportunities. In corporate speak, that means he was fired without the company having to admit wrongdoing. His Wharton MBA and 12 years of seniority couldn't save him from the consequences of his greed. I heard through the grapevine that he's now working at a much smaller agency in Indianapolis, having taken a significant pay cut and losing his fancy title. His Tesla got repossessed after he missed 3 payments. His wife filed for divorce, apparently having had enough of his lies, professional and personal. Meanwhile, Phoenix Strategic Consulting's first 6 months exceeded even my most optimistic projections. The Project Phoenix strategy implementation for Titanium Industries generated a 34% increase in qualified leads and a 28% improvement in customer acquisition costs within the first quarter. James Morrison was so impressed that he introduced me to 3 other manufacturing CEOs in his network. By month 4, I'd signed 2 of them as clients. Jennifer Park left Apex and became my first employee, Director of Analytics, with a 40% salary increase in equity in the company. Tom Chen joined a month later as Senior Strategist. We're now a team of 7, operating out of a real office in Chicago's West Loop, and we're on track to hit $2.1 million in revenue by year's end. But the sweetest moment came 3 months after I started Phoenix. I was at an industry conference in Boston, networking at a cocktail reception, when I spotted Richard across the room. He was nursing a drink alone, looking diminished somehow, his Armani suit replaced by something off the rack. Our eyes met. For a moment, I thought he might ignore me, but he walked over, his expression unreadable. I suppose you're here to gloat, he said. Actually, no, I replied honestly. I'm here to network and find new clients. Your chapter of my story ended months ago, Richard. He was quiet for a moment, then said, for what it's worth, you were right. I shouldn't have done what I did. It was wrong. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the closest thing I was ever going to get from him. It was wrong, I agreed. But it taught me something important. I spent 7 years thinking I needed a company like Apex to validate my worth, that I needed your approval to be successful. Turns out, all I needed was the courage to bet on myself and the integrity to do business the right way. I walked away without waiting for his response. There was nothing else to say. Looking back now, 6 months later, I realized that Richard Hendricks actually did me a favor, though I doubt he sees it that way. His betrayal forced me to take a risk I might never have taken otherwise. I'd probably still be at Apex, working those 60-hour weeks, sacrificing my time and creativity, waiting for a promotion that might never have come, watching mediocre men take credit for my work. Instead, I own my own company. I control my destiny. I work with clients who value my expertise and compensate me fairly for it. I've built a team of talented people who share my values and who I'll never betray the way Richard betrayed me. My girlfriend Sarah, who supported me through the darkest days of that transition, is now my fiancée. I proposed last month, and she said yes immediately. I'm not naive enough to think success is guaranteed forever. Running your own business is terrifying, exhausting, and uncertain in ways that having a corporate job never was. But it's mine. Every success, every failure, every lesson learned, it all belongs to me. The revenge I took on Richard Hendricks wasn't just about stealing his biggest client, though that was satisfying as hell. The real revenge was building something better than what he took from me, proving that integrity and talent matter more than corporate politics and stolen credit, and living well while he deals with the consequences of his choices. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's construction. It's taking what they stole and building something they could never have created themselves. It's succeeding on your own terms while they explain their failures to whoever's still listening. Richard Hendricks stole my million-dollar idea, so I took his biggest client, built a company, and left him in the dust where he belongs. And you know what? I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.